All right, so hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive with us. Today, we're going to be looking at something that, well, sparked a lot of debate online. Snoop Dogg performing at Donald Trump's inauguration. Yeah, you heard that right. Definitely wading into some choppy waters here.
Yeah, no kidding. It's definitely a moment that had people talking, that's for sure.
For sure. And, we saw everything from, like, diehard fans supporting Snoop no matter what,
Yeah.
to others who were really, really critical of his choice.
Definitely a mixed bag of reactions, lots of strong opinions on all sides.
Absolutely. And, that's exactly why we're diving into this today. We really want to understand, like, what was it about this specific performance that caused such a stir? How did Snoop himself address the criticism? And what does this whole thing tell us about, the whole world of celebrities and politics, right?
Yeah.
It's a fascinating intersection.
Oh, for sure. And it's something that's, always been a bit of a tightrope walk for celebrities, especially in today's world where everyone's got an opinion and a platform to share it.
Absolutely. And I got to say, Snoop being Snoop, he had a pretty characteristically blunt response to all the criticism, right? He basically said, get your life right. Stop worrying about mine. I mean, come on, you got to love that classic Snoop attitude.
Right, classic Snoop. And I think that quote, in its like directness and that unapologetic tone, it really does capture his personality, right? Like throughout his career, he's always kind of done his own thing, charted his own course, and this response just kind of underlines that independent streak he's always had.
It's like he's not really concerned with what other people think. He's going to do what he feels is right.
Exactly. And I think that that attitude, while, refreshing to some, was precisely what rubbed other people the wrong way, especially given the context of the event.
Right, right. Because to really grasp the weight of this whole thing, we got to take a step back and look at Snoop's relationship with politics, right? It's been a long and winding road, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it. You have Snoop in his early days, that gangster rap image,
Yeah.
and then you see him evolve into this, like, cultural icon, entrepreneur, even doing cooking shows with Martha Stewart.
Right. It's quite the journey. And his relationship with politics has evolved right alongside that.
For sure. In those early days, his political expression was mostly channeled through his music. Think about songs like The Shiznit or Deep Cover, touching on police brutality, life in marginalized communities. It was protest woven into his art.
So he was always politically engaged, but maybe in a more, like, rebellious, less direct way.
Exactly. But as his career changed, his persona evolved, so did his approach to political discourse. He became more vocal, endorsing candidates, making statements, even meeting political figures.
So it's less about aligning with a specific party and more about using his platform to spotlight issues he cares about.
Yeah, spot on. And that evolution is really important to keep in mind when we're looking at his decision to perform at Trump's inauguration, because it complicates the whole narrative, doesn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that complexity is reflected in how fans reacted to the news. I mean, social media was just a complete whirlwind. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere you looked, everyone had an opinion. It seemed like the world was split on whether Snoop had made the right call.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely a divided reaction. It was almost like two completely separate conversations happening at the same time. One about artistic freedom and the other about social responsibility.
Right. Like, on the one hand, should artists have the right to perform wherever they choose, regardless of the politics involved? And on the other, do they have a responsibility to use their platform to support specific causes, even if it means turning down certain opportunities?
It's a tough question, and honestly, Snoop's performance just kind of threw gasoline on an already smoldering fire, forcing everyone to confront these questions head on.
Yeah, it really did. But before we, fully dive into that social media frenzy, let's actually take a closer look at the historical context of artists engaging in politics. I mean, this isn't a new phenomenon, is it?
Not at all. It's been happening for centuries, really. Think about the civil rights movement. Artists like Nina Simone, Harry Belafonte, they used their music as a powerful tool to advocate for social justice and equality. Their songs became anthems, inspiring change, giving a voice to the voiceless.
Right, like they didn't shy away from tackling the the big issues of their time through their art.
Yeah.
And that wasn't without risks, was it? I mean, speaking out against segregation, racial injustice back then, that could have serious consequences.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, these artists face backlash, censorship, even threats to their safety, but they persisted because they understood the power of their platform.
Right, like their voices could reach so many people and
Right.
potentially shift perspectives.
They knew that, and they were willing to take those risks.
It's almost like their music became a soundtrack to the movement. And that tradition of artists using their platform to speak truth to power, it's still going strong today. Right.
Oh, it definitely is. Think about musicians today who are outspoken about climate change, LGBTQ plus rights, even the war in Ukraine. They're following in those footsteps, using their art to raise awareness, inspire action, and challenge the status quo.
And it's interesting how the ways artists engage with politics has evolved over time. It's not just about protest songs anymore, right?
Not at all. Today, artists have a wider range of tools, right? Social media, for example, has become this powerful platform to express their views, connect with fans, and rally support for causes they believe in.
It's like a direct line to their audience, bypassing the traditional media gatekeepers.
Exactly. But of course, that comes with its own set of challenges, right? Social media can be a really unforgiving place.
Oh, absolutely. Artists are constantly under scrutiny, every word analyzed, every action debated. And with the rise of things like cancel culture, the stakes are higher than ever, right? One wrong step and the consequences can be swift and severe.
It's a tough landscape to navigate, for sure.
Definitely a double-edged sword. Huge reach and influence on one hand, intense scrutiny and potential backlash on the other.
Right. And it brings us back to Snoop Dogg and his decision to perform at Trump's inauguration. Knowing all this history, it's clear that Snoop's situation wasn't totally unique. He was facing the same dilemmas artists have faced for generations: how to balance their artistic expression with their personal beliefs, how to manage expectations that come with fame, and how to use their platform responsibly in a world that's, well, it's becoming more and more divided.
It definitely adds another layer to the whole story, right? Like, it's not just about Snoop's individual choice. It's about this larger, ongoing conversation about the role of artists in society and how they engage in political discourse.
Exactly. And to understand that conversation fully, we need to look at how the public responds to these kinds of situations. Because ultimately, it's the fans, the listeners, the viewers, they're the ones who decide whether an artist's political stance enhances or detracts from their work.
Right. So let's shift gears and take a deep dive into public opinion. Let's see what people were saying online, how they were justifying their views, and what it all reveals about our current cultural climate. It's going to be fascinating.
Oh, yeah, buckle up. This is where things get really interesting. You're absolutely right. This tension between like artistic expression and political engagement, it's been around forever.
Yeah, for sure.
It really has. I mean,
It's not a new thing.
yeah, think back to like the civil rights movement. You had artists like Nina Simone, Harry Belafonte. They used their music to advocate for social justice, for equality.
Yeah, their songs became anthems for the whole movement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They became like a soundtrack to that struggle.
And they didn't shy away from using their art to address the pressing issues of their time. And it wasn't without risk, was it? I mean, speaking out against segregation and racial injustice back.
Oh, yeah, huge risk. I mean, these artists faced backlash, censorship, even threats to their safety, but they just kept going because they knew how powerful their platform was.
Yeah, they recognized that their voices could reach a huge audience and potentially change people's minds, change hearts.
They were willing to take those risks to make a difference.
It's really inspiring to see that kind of courage.
It is, it is.
And that tradition of artists using their platform to speak truth to power continues today, right?
Oh, yeah, big time.
It hasn't gone away.
Think about all the musicians who are speaking out about climate change, LGBTQ plus rights, the war in Ukraine. They're all carrying that torch, using their art to raise awareness, to get people to act, to challenge the status quo.
Yeah, and it's interesting how the ways that artists engage in politics has evolved over time. Like, it's not just about writing protest songs anymore, is it?
Not at all, not at all. I mean, today artists have a whole range of tools they can use. Social media, for one, has become this massive platform for them to share their opinions, connect with fans, and build support for the things they believe in.
Yeah, it's like a direct line to their audience, bypassing traditional media.
Exactly. But that comes with its own set of problems, right? Because social media can be brutal.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it can be a really tough space.
Yeah. Artists are under constant scrutiny. Every word they say, every action they take is analyzed and debated online.
Yeah, and with cancel culture and everything, the stakes are higher than ever, you know?
Yeah, it's like one misstep, one perceived offense, and the consequences can be huge.
It can be really rough out there.
It's definitely a double-edged sword.
It is, it is.
Big power and reach on one side, intense scrutiny and potential backlash on the other.
You said it. And that kind of brings us back to Snoop Dogg and his decision to perform at Trump's inauguration. Like, looking back at the history of artists and politics, it's clear that Snoop wasn't alone in this. He was grappling with the same issues artists have always faced: how to balance their art with their beliefs, how to deal with the expectations that come with fame, and how to use their platform responsibly in a world that's, well, increasingly polarized.
Yeah, it definitely adds a whole other dimension to the story, right? It's not just about Snoop's choice. It's about this bigger conversation about the role of artists in society and how they navigate the world of politics.
Right. And to really understand the complexity of that conversation, we need to look at how the public responds to these situations, right? Because ultimately it's the fans, the listeners, the viewers, they're the ones who decide whether an artist's political stance helps or hurts their work.
Yeah, makes sense.
It does. It does.
So let's turn our attention to the court of public opinion. Let's see how people reacted to Snoop's actions and words and what it all says about our current cultural climate.
All right. Let's dive into that social media storm.
Okay, so we're back and we're diving headfirst into the social media frenzy that surrounded this whole Snoop Dogg situation. I'm really curious to see what people were saying, how they were, defending their positions, and what this all tells us about where we are culturally.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it really was a fascinating glimpse into how we view celebrity activism these days and, the role of art in society.
Right, right. So let's break it down. Like, what were some of the main arguments that you saw emerging from all that noise online?
Well, on one side, you had a lot of fans who were really passionately defending Snoop's right to perform wherever he wants. For them, it was all about artistic freedom, pure and simple.
Right. Like they felt like Snoop as an artist shouldn't be limited by political considerations.
Yeah, exactly. They were saying that art shouldn't be held hostage to political agendas, and that Snoop performing at the inauguration didn't necessarily mean he was endorsing Trump's policies.
Right. They were making a distinction between the performance and any kind of political statement.
Yeah, and some even pointed to Snoop's history of activism,
Yeah.
saying that showed a commitment to his values that went way beyond this one performance.
Like they felt he had already proven his dedication to certain causes, so this one decision shouldn't define him.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. They were essentially echoing Snoop's own words. Get your life right, stop worrying about mine.
Right, right. It was about respecting his individual choice.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm guessing there was another side to this story, right? What were the people who were critical of Snoop's performance saying? What were their arguments?
Yeah, for a lot of the critics, it wasn't just about Snoop's freedom to perform. They felt like his decision, it carried a lot more weight, especially given his platform and how influential he is. They were arguing that performing at Trump's inauguration, even if it wasn't intentional, could be seen as normalizing or legitimizing a figure that they strongly opposed.
So it was more about the message it sent, even if Snoop himself didn't mean to make a political statement.
Exactly. They felt like his actions, regardless of his intent, had consequences, especially for people who might be marginalized or harmed by Trump's policies.
Right, right.
They saw it as a betrayal of the values he had talked about in his music and through his activism.
So they were holding him to a higher standard because of his history of speaking out against injustice.
Yeah, yeah. And some were saying that, with great influence comes great responsibility, right? That
Yeah.
Snoop had a moral obligation to use his platform to speak out against what they saw as wrong, even if it meant, turning down a big opportunity.
Like it wasn't just about this one performance, it was about a bigger expectation for how artists, especially those with really big platforms, should engage with politics.
Yeah, you got it. It gets to the heart of what we expect from our cultural icons, right? Should they use their influence to fight for the things they believe in, even if it puts them at risk? Or should they stay neutral, just focus on their art?
It's a tough question. There's no easy answer. And it makes you think about how we as consumers of art and culture, how we contribute to those expectations. Do we want our favorite artists to mirror our own political views? Or do we value their artistic expression above all else?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something we all got to wrestle with, you know. I think Snoop's situation just it brought all those tensions to the surface and forced us to confront those messy realities of art, politics, and celebrity in this digital age.
Yeah, it definitely gave us all a lot to think about. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the big takeaway is that there's no simple rule book for navigating the world where art and politics collide. It's a constant balancing act,
Mm.
full of dilemmas and potential pitfalls.
And what might seem like a personal choice for an artist can have a ripple effect, you know,
Yeah.
impacting fans, communities, and even the broader cultural landscape.
And that's why it's so important to keep having these conversations.
Right. We all have a role to play in shaping those conversations and holding people accountable and in engaging with these issues thoughtfully and respectfully.
Absolutely, well said. And with that, we've come to the end of our deep dive into Snoop Dogg's controversial performance. Thanks for joining us as we unpack this complex issue. And remember, this is just the start of the conversation. So keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep that dialogue going.